What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're going to jump in and talk about something a little bit different. And yes, we are going to be discussing Bungie's new game. It's very early on, by the way, if you don't know a lot about this, but minute kind of tidbits of interesting info are starting to sprout up. But we should straight up say that Bungie haven't revealed anything yet, so we don't have any official details. The game is very much in very early development, but I wanted to round up some of the things that we know, such as a potential timeline for when Bungie want to actually distribute a new game. And then, via new job listings, we can start to get a rough idea of the territory or some of the territory that Bungie will be in with the new game. So it does look like it will share some components with Destiny. It also has the possibility of being a more competitive multiplayer game. Looks like we have the possibility of loot, comical characters, and a few other elements which look like they'll differ from the Destiny experience. So we're going to round up some of the details, but once again, we are looking at very early components of what Bungie are going to be doing in the future, so ultimately it can only really lead us to speculate, but I think it's an interesting conversation for Destiny and Bungie fans nonetheless. So GameRant actually posted an article about this initially, and they round up a few things that we've already heard about. So Bungie are currently developing a new IP. They have separately said that they're planning to become a multi-project or a multi-franchise studio. And then Pete Parsons, the CEO of Bungie, said that they do want to have a non-Destiny game actually being released by the year 2025. So that's very curious, and Bungie did of course register the trademark Matter, and so that's a potential name for the new project, or of course some kind of working name. And when we pair that 2025 timeline with what Luke Smith said about the future of Destiny 2 and how they're thinking about the next 3 to 5 years, it's possible that there could be some kind of correlation there. And we should say, on the subject of the health of Destiny as a franchise and the future of the franchise, Bungie are actually still hiring leads and new staff for Destiny, so as they've said, it's definitely not something that they plan to stop supporting or making in the future. But when it comes to the new project that Bungie are working on, there are a few job listings that they've put up recently which are pretty curious. One of them includes the Incubation Art Director. And so it says, are you on a mission to create games that bond players together into deeply invested communities? Would you like to work on something comedic with light-hearted and whimsical characters? Do you think a lot about how art impacts gameplay, how character design can enable fan cosplays, or how character poses and environments speak to different cultures around the world? Now, obviously, from this description, light-hearted and whimsical characters obviously doesn't necessarily sound like Destiny, while we do have characters like that in Destiny. This sounds like a potentially broader vision for a new project. It also makes me think of something much more character-based, maybe something like a character shooter, although that isn't necessarily what we're looking at. But even more so when they discuss cosplays and the characters of this new IP potentially being cosplayable, but also taking influence and speaking to cultures around the world. Of course, it could just be very foundational knowledge that Bungie want, or it could actually hint towards the character focus of the game, right? We can, however, also see that Bungie need a lead to define the look of the project, and then also consistently, Bungie lists that they want a strong familiarity with competitive gaming, specifically mentioning the competitive gaming landscape, and that's in relation to the art direction of the game specifically. So that's kind of curious, and we see that again in another posting for an incubation economy design lead. And by the way, that term incubation, essentially I guess it means very early stages development of systems and all the processes you need before you can truly start to build that into a game. And for the economy design lead, Bungie are seeking a highly technical, creative, and team-oriented economy design lead who is excited to help build the next IP. They need someone who'll help them build a healthy in-game economy and be responsible for helping design drop rates, reward curves, progression systems, and more. If something has the potential to be earned, spent, or traded, you'll help us figure out how, where, and when. Now, the required skills for this job also once again lists that competitive gaming and wider experience in that field. But the fact that they mention investment systems, quests, weapons, armor, and equipment in the responsibilities is pretty interesting. And of course, these could be pretty wide components. That's the thing we need to bear in mind when we're talking about a completely different game. These are things that could work very differently to how they do in Destiny, or they could be remarkably similar. But they do list monetization factors here as well, so the team lead will have to manage and kind of analyze economic data, including monetization performance and optimizing that performance in the game. Of course, monetization itself is something that we pretty much expect in most modern live games especially. But continuing into sandbox stuff, for the Incubation Senior Gameplay Animator, it says they need someone to be involved in all aspects of combat animation, from the initial concept of motion to its technical considerations, in addition to collaborating with other teams on the look and feel of our new project's gameplay. So obviously that's a pretty big standout. But firstly, in the required skills, once again it mentions competitive games, but then also a solid understanding of first-person gameplay, mechanics, immersive camera motion and core design, as well as experience animating first and third-person content on multiple AAA titles. And so this doesn't strictly mean that we'll see a third-person game, and of course in Destiny we use both first and third-person, and that's the case in quite a few games. But there was a rumor earlier on that Bungie's next title would actually feature prominent third-person gameplay, so it is a possibility that they'll be focusing on that more, although that was just a rumor. So what does all of this actually mean? What does it tell us? Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that there is a significant project starting to ramp up. There were also a lot of rumors, or this concept that the new IP would be a mobile game, and that's because Bungie received an investment from a large firm in China who deal with a lot of mobile games. And so that is entirely possible, but I think based on what we're seeing, it's also possible that this could be a full-blown next-gen title for multiple platforms, right? As for the genre, I almost feel like a character shooter game could be a thing, but again, that's pure speculation, and the info that we have does suggest that competitive gaming, possible continued looter-shooter or MMO features, and a social game are going to be some of the top considerations for Bungie. So what do you guys think? I'm very curious to get a sense of what you imagine Bungie could be working on in the future. Once again, this isn't kind of a news video in the typical format, right? It's a discussion of information that we have about Bungie's next project, and we are getting little bits here and there. However, most of the stuff that we've spoken about, of course, they indicate the elements of the game that are going to be important, and that doesn't necessarily tell us exactly what kind of game it's gonna be. Although once again, a competitive focus, a really strong gameplay focus, monetization, potentially suggesting a live game. There's a lot of stuff there that has the potential to be pretty big, but more than anything, I think we can say that this Matter IP, the new project, definitely looks like it's going to be quite different from Destiny. Or even if it does share some similarities, you know, in the way that Halo and Destiny share similarities. Both of those games do have very different identities, but also, they carry Bungie's identity very strongly throughout them, which is really interesting, and I'm curious to see how a new project could also do that. So give us your thoughts, guys, but if you've enjoyed the discussion, a rating below is very much appreciated. I did look into all of these job roles and things on the Bungie career page as well, so you can check out the landing page if that's something you're interested in. But then there is the Game Rant article that has a few of these things in a kind of text format, so if you want to check that out, I'll link it down below as well. But if you dig the video, a rating really helps me out, guys, and if you're new around here and you want to keep up to date with everything related to the world of Destiny, or indeed Bungie in the future, then be sure to hit that subscribe button. But for now, whatever you guys get up to, I hope you have an awesome day.